You couldn't see one. You couldn't see one Spider-Man movie before doing something in the Spider-Man universe. Hello, good morning, BBs.
Good morning, BBs. It's too early.
It sure is.
Welcome to the first, best, and only morning show in existence. I'm Anthony Carboni.
And I'm Saige Ryan, and we are right on time to talk about Madam Web today.
Ooh, Saige, her web, it connects us all. It's a perfect movie. I got no notes on Madam Web.
Okay, so let me give you the rundown of how today is going to go.
I got a lot of notes on Madam Web, actually.
We have a lot of feelings and opinions and things we need to discuss that we haven't gotten to even discuss with each other yet about Madam Web, okay? We've saved it for you. However, we are also being very considerate to the BBs that have not seen Madam Web yet. So, on the show today, we're going to talk about reviews and reactions to Madam Web.
Yeah.
We're going to give a little bit of opinions on Madam Web, but we're not going into any movie reviews and we're not giving any spoilers.
We're not going to spoil the thrill ride that is Madam Web. We're not going to spoil the cinematic tour de force that is Madam Web for you. We're not every snap zoom, every ADR line of dialogue. We're not gonna ruin any of that for you. What we are going to do until
you see us on the Patreon later, because we are doing a full spoiler review of Madam Web on the Patreon.
That's right. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be better than Dakota Johnson having to promote Madam Web. I can't promise that. Nothing is better than Dakota Johnson.
Nothing is better.
I went and saw Madame Web last night.
Yeah.
I saw a 9 p.m. show. That's how committed I was to Madam Web. You know that I don't go out after 9 p.m.
Yeah, I was surprised how late you texted me. I was shocked you were awake at 11:45.
I was not happy about it, but I mean, I was very happy that I saw Madam Web. I got the Interesting Movie Club got together. As you know, I have a secret cabal of friends that I go to see extremely interesting films with. This is the same group of people that I was with when I got kicked out of Morbius for laughing too hard.
Yeah, it's interesting that you call it secret and then talk about it all the time.
Well, it's the membership and the movies that we go to and the times that we go to them are shrouded in secrecy.
Well, you've already said what movie you went to and that you're a member
because it's already over.
Okay.
Listen.
So this is just not inviting your other friends.
Yeah. You can't come.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I don't want to go to a movie with you. I never would.
That's really mean.
I never would. I never have, and I never will.
Yeah.
But I went with my actual movie friends last night.
Wow. Okay. Well, get fucked. Yeah.
No, I went with the Interesting Movie Club, and we had such a wonderful time. I did not get kicked out.
Congratulations.
But it was only because the sting of being kicked out of Morbius was still with me.
Did you go back to the same theater?
Same theater.
No.
Yeah. Because I wasn't kicked out for life.
No, I know, but the only thing is, so the Alamo Draft House is a very common like chain of movie theaters throughout the U.S., they have a very particular rule.
And they have a picture of me up front now.
Yeah, and Anthony's not allowed back in any of them.
Yeah.
But the thing is they're very particular about you do not fucking talk during these movies. Like, AMC don't give a shit.
No.
AMC will let anybody ruin the movie for you.
No, and I've thought about that, but here's the thing. I was not kicked out of Morbius for heckling Morbius. I was not kicked out of Morbius.
You were kicked out for laughing.
I got kicked out for laughing.
So that's what I'm saying.
But listen. I was very focused. I was very aware of the fact that I could be kicked out at any moment.
Yeah.
And so I simply I basically did like when you tell a little kid to sit on their hands.
Yeah.
I basically was like, listen, if you don't eat that marshmallow now, you'll get 2 marshmallows later. That's what I did to myself. And I was like, but luckily, enough of the crowd was like, and here's what I'm going to say.
They can't kick all of us out.
Yeah. Enough of the crowd was laughing at Madam Web. And also, enough of the crowd was just the people I came with. Not only is Madam Web here on week 1 of Madam Web.
Yeah.
Already been demoted to the smallest auditorium in the theater. It was basically empty except for the Interesting Movie Club. I think there were like 5 other people in the theater.
Wow.
Opening week, Madam Web. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
It was It was everything that I love about a Sony movie.
Yeah.
It's just Sony doesn't understand that movies were made after 2006.
Right.
And they just keep making 2006 movies over and over.
Well, specifically in this one, 2003.
That's right. Because they were like, well, let's not even go to where things were winding down. Let's go to our heyday.
Yeah.
This movie is set in the past for fucking reasons. It's like
For reasons of why Spider-Man can't be there.
Yeah. You would think that Spider-Man was like the Babadook.
Yeah.
You would think that to Sony,
Yeah.
just mentioning Spider-Man
Yeah.
would be enough to bring the spirits down upon their
Yeah, the
homes.
Spider-Man is like the cursed play.
Yeah.
Like, you don't say the name in the theater.
Right,
you know?
right. Oh, we're doing the Scottish play. We're
Yeah.
doing the spider one.
Yeah.
They get so close to saying Spider-Man like 8 times in this movie. They get extremely close to saying Peter Parker, but literally every time somebody tries to say Peter Parker, a loud sound goes off in the movie.
It's incredible.
It's bonkers. And I gotta tell you, I've never seen, this is the show, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I've gotta tell you, I've never seen a movie with so much ADR. The only movie I've seen with more ADR was probably like Kung Pao.
Yeah. Yeah. Kung Pao into the fist.
It was either Kung Pao or one of the Kung Fu movies that Kung Pao was making fun of.
Yeah.
Like literally every line in this film was ADR. ADR is like post dialogue. Like nobody on set. Like
It's dubbing, like if you've watched a dubbed film before, but when the original film was also in the same language.
yeah, and they try to keep ADR to a minimum in movies because it's so hard to make it like even if you have an actor like
Most movies have some ADR.
yeah, but even like any actor or filmmaker will tell you that like, oh, there was a bunch of loud noise in this scene that we couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
So we had to have the actor come in and loop their lines.
Yeah.
And actors hate doing it because they're like, I'm not in the moment. I'm not in the place.
Yeah.
It's going to sound a little off. They literally didn't know what the plot of this movie was going to be. And so everyone in the film
Yeah.
was ADR. There are
Not everyone in the film was ADR.
People were like turning their backs to the camera to deliver 3-minute monologues. And then they would turn around and go, and that's why it had to happen. And it was like, oh, so they didn't know.
Yeah.
They were figuring it out in the mo.
Yeah.
They were doing shit with the camera where they were doing post zooms.
Right.
You know, like when a YouTuber like just post zooms into their video.
Yeah.
You know, they were doing that so they could
Cut out
zoom
someone's
into the
mouth.
movie and move the camera around like it was handheld.
Yeah.
So you couldn't see the mouth of the person who was talking. And then sometimes, towards the end,
Yeah.
they didn't give a fuck. And people were just sitting on camera and words were coming out of their mouths.
With their mouths closed.
They just weren't open.
Again, we're not going to get too far into the actual plot points of the movie because we have so much to talk about. What we are going to talk about is people's reactions to it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through some reviews here. We are going to talk about the press tour leading up to it. We simply have to talk about Dakota Johnson promoting this movie. Now, most likely we would have covered this on Wednesday, but the power was out in the studio, so there was no show on Wednesday. So now we get the chance to look back at the entire promotional lead up to this film, having seen it.
Ooh. Alex, when are you going to see Madam Web?
I was supposed to see it this weekend. That's on me. It rained in LA.
What is the matter with you? Were you
We're like the madam.
What's the matter with me?
you where you couldn't go see the cinematic tour de force of 2024?
You see, it rained, Anthony.
Oh yeah.
So
We live in Los Angeles and it rained, so
Yeah.
nobody can go outside.
I couldn't go outside,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I will see it this week. I'll do
Okay.
my best
Okay.
shot.
All right.
Please
We'll
do.
check back in once you do.
Yep.
We'll check back in. Okay. So let's talk about the lead up. Let's talk about the press tour for Madam Web. Let's talk about Dakota Johnson, who
Yeah.
obviously was the star of the press tour, being Madam Web herself, and her just deep disinterest in being at said press tour and deep disinterest in said movie.
So the first trailer for Madam Web drops.
Yeah.
Within the same week, I have a feeling the same day, but within the same week, we find out that Dakota Johnson has fired her agents. She moves to a new agency. She probably has like a whole new team of people because she's very mad and bummed about being Madam Web.
Madam Bum.
She's very Madam Bummed is what I would call her. And her behavior on this on the press tour, if the movie was not terrible, like for the first couple days of this press tour, everybody was like, "What the fuck is up with Dakota Johnson?" But then once the reviews started coming in, everybody was like, "Dakota Johnson rules."
Well, let's dissect this a little bit because
Okay.
I
layers.
am always the person who's like, fuck you, you just hate women and they're not answering exactly the way you want them to, and there's only one way that we accept women being in interviews, right? Like I was here to defend Rachel Ziegler.
Sure.
Right? I was here to defend Brie Larson, of course. And I really do think you guys are assholes for how you treated both of them.
Dude, Brie Larson is hilarious, and the fact that everybody was not like, Brie Larson is hilarious and cool,
is nothing but misogyny.
Yeah.
So I want to be very clear before I say that Dakota Johnson, with all of that considered, comes across as such an asshole. And it's not that she just doesn't like the movie.
No.
Because you know what did it for me? There's an interview with the three younger women talking about on set. And they were like, did you guys all like really bond during the movie? Like, do you guys all like text and stuff still? And they were like, Dakota doesn't talk to us. They were like, yeah, I mean, we try to text Dakota, but she just doesn't respond. And then there's the other side of it.
probably at home eating limes.
And the question was asked to Dakota Johnson as well. And she's like, well, the three of them bonded. And then there was me. It's so mean.
So,
it's so, like,
okay.
that's just so mean.
On one level, like, all right, there are layers to this.
There are layers
The first thing
to
is
it.
that while I do think that what Dakota Johnson is doing on this press tour, and we'll watch some of these clips, is funny, I also think Dakota Johnson is in a place where this is the second press tour where she's been able to do this. She did similar stuff on the 50 Shades press tour. And at this point, we do have to talk about what a Nepo movie Madam Web is. Because Dakota Johnson, daughter of Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith, a stepdaughter of Antonio Banderas, Dakota Johnson keeps doing movies that don't do well, and then basically Veruca salts and says, Daddy, the movie was bad and it wasn't my fault. I want another movie.
Yeah.
Get me another movie.
To the point where she even forgets the movies she's been in. Somebody in an interview was like, well, you've done a movie with a Spider-Man. You did a movie with Andrew Garfield. And she went, I did. And then sat there in silence while they were like, yeah, the Social Network?
You remember The Social Network.
And she was like, oh, yeah, I guess. There's also her talking about...
Yeah, I guess I did a movie with Andrew Garfield. I guess Andrew Garfield was in The Social Network.
Yeah.
I guess.
And then she also, there's an interview of her talking about, these are other just like nepotism behaviors, of her talking about how being on The Office was like the worst time of her life because she wasn't a main character. She talks about how she thought that she was going to be important and she was just a background character, and how it made it the worst time of her life.
Oh, there was nothing...
The worst time of her life.
There was nothing more horrible than having a speaking role on one of the largest television shows in history.
That's got to be so hard for you, babe.
It's so rough. It's probably like rough when like residual checks come in. Right. It's probably rough when people all recognize her and she gets jobs based on it. And that's the thing that's tough about all this is it's like Paltrow levels of Nepo baby with her at this point, where like, I remember there was an episode of this chef show where Gwyneth Paltrow was like, they were all eating dinner and Gwyneth Paltrow was like, to Jon Favreau goes, oh, I wasn't in a Spider-Man. And Jon Favreau goes, yeah, you were in a Spider-Man. No, I wasn't. I'd remember if I was in a Spider-Man. And he's like, we were in a fucking Spider-Man together. We were all in Spider-Man. And she was like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right, I guess I was.
Wild.
This is like, to the point where actually one of the clips that we're going to show from Dakota Johnson during this tour is about her being a Nepo baby. And it's basically like a skit she did about it. But because the movie is bad, everything that she normally does is now reading like a very cool self-aware bit. Yeah. Where she's just like, oh yeah, a Spider-Man. Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard when
Like-
you know she's always like that because here's
Yeah.
the thing. This has happened to her before where everybody thought that she was kind of rude and then she did that to Ellen and we all hate Ellen.
Yeah.
So we were like, hell yeah, Dakota Johnson fucking got her. We love Dakota Johnson. You're so funny and cool because she was mean to Ellen. And then you realize she's mean to everybody and you're like, damn it, it's not fun anymore. You should have just been mean to Ellen.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is we can root for one bad guy punching another bad guy. You know what I mean?
But it doesn't make her awesome.
Like when the Joker and Lex Luthor fight, you're like, yeah, fight. Fight. Yeah. When the alien fights the Predator.
Right. You choose a side, but like...
No matter who wins,
Right.
we lose,
Yeah,
right?
like
Because
an
you
American
still have-
presidential election.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah,
When
no matter
they're-
who wins,
when
we
they're
lose.
attacking each other, you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, get him, get him, get
Yeah.
him. And then you're
you
like,
got to pick your side.
and then you're like, oh no, one of them's gonna win.
Oh no. One continues on after this. It's not a dual death match.
Getting rid of Ellen's great because Ellen was in our face every day.
Right.
Dakota Johnson just sits in her home with her weird limes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
And
which
she
like is
pops, she pops out every 3 years to make a movie, and we're like, fuck, Dakota Johnson's back.
Yeah. And she talked about the line bit. She was just like, yeah, I just lie. And like, man, it could be Aubrey Plaza and it isn't.
Yeah.
Because Aubrey Plaza does it. Aubrey Plaza knows how to be like cheeky, self-aware. I'm playing with people and being mean without being genuinely mean.
That's
Like,
her whole vibe.
Nobody is like, I didn't like working with Aubrey Plaza, you know, as far as I know.
Right.
So there's the difference there of it, I think. And like, man, there's moments in the press tour where she's talking about the first time I've seen her smile in one of these interviews was talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah. Which like
Rough.
okay, so let's show some Dakota Johnson on tour.
Greatest moments. All right, let's do it.
Here she is with Josh Horowitz, Josh Horowitz is a lovely interviewer.
She's so mean to interviewers. I feel so bad for the interviewers.
And Horowitz is like, he's been working for MTV forever. He's got his own podcast now.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys where like when you see him at press stuff, people go, oh, Horowitz, pleasant guy, good interviewer. Like all the celebs know Horowitz and like him.
Yeah.
He's trying to be one of the things that you'll see in this thread is people are trying to be very generous with Dakota Johnson.
They're trying so hard.
They're trying.
They're just doing their damn job.
They're just like they're lobbing the softest of balls at Dakota Johnson.
All right, let's watch it.
All right, here we go.
Let's be real. And this isn't meant as a negative. Like, again, just
4%,
4%.
which is like 15 minutes of one.
Now, once again, if this movie had turned out well, that would kind of suck as a moment. But also, I mean, like,
No, this is worse because the movie was bad to me. Because if you were a fan of the movies and your movie was bad, that would suck
I
for
get
you
what
and
you're
I'd feel
saying.
bad for you.
yeah, because I'm thinking about it like
You're thinking about Sony movies, sure. If she
Yeah.
hasn't seen Morbius, okay, sure. She's not really looking forward to future Sony, Marvel
Right.
comp. But like, if she was like, I love Marvel, and then her movie was bad when she thought she was gonna get in the Marvel universe, sympathy. I'd have it for you. But instead, she's like, I didn't do any research. I announced on SNL that I was going into the Marvel universe because I didn't understand how it worked. I refused to watch any Marvel movies leading up to it.
Yeah.
And I don't
And there
respect
are
what
some-
anyone else does.
And I will say there are some people, you're right. There are some people where like they will sit down in an interview and they will say like I've interviewed people for Star Wars where they're
Yeah.
like, no, I didn't know much about Star Wars, but I'm a good actor. I read the script.
Yeah.
I watched the stuff I had to watch and I made sure that I
Yeah.
did well in this thing.
As a fan, it offends me every time.
It
As a fan, it is just something I dislike.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
It's not the most important thing, but
Yeah.
it
does upset. I don't like
feels
it.
better when somebody who cares about it is doing it.
Like, I'm still mad about the Taika Waititi.
Yeah, and you
of
can
it all.
you can care about a movie you're in and a movie
Yeah.
you're making without caring about the other ancillary things. But
And
it's
in
better.
addition to that,
but it's better when you do.
you can just be media trained and you can say, I haven't seen all of them, but I love all the ones I've seen.
yeah,
Hey, you were literally raised by Hollywood royalty. You couldn't media train?
no, she doesn't have to.
You couldn't media train, babe?
She does not have to. Here's the other bit with Horowitz, which I honestly, this is a golden moment. I actually really enjoy this moment.
Yeah.
Let's check this one out.
Man, Tom Holland movies.
Can you name
Yeah.
any of the Spider-Man Tom Holland movies?
Should I just go on faith?
Yeah.
Oh,
Spider-Man. Here he comes.
here he comes. That's
number one.
Yep.
Spider-Man, and he's back. And the other one, the last one is the Goblet of Spider-Man.
Like, you
The
could.
Goblet of
Vacation.
Carrying
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Here's the thing. If she hadn't seen the Andrew Garfields, she hadn't seen the Tobey Maguires.
Yeah.
Okay. You couldn't see one. You couldn't see one Spider-Man movie before doing something in the Spider-Man universe. I understand asking somebody to go through and watch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe would be
That's
too
a
much.
lot.
That's a lot.
But Spider-Man,
Personally, if I was going to be in a Marvel movie, it would not be too much to ask to pay me millions of dollars to become a superhero. But that's besides the point.
Right.
But one Spider-Man, Dakota, one Spider-Man.
not a single
Watch one.
Spider-Man. It's definitely giving Sam Raimi getting notes on WandaVision
Yeah.
before doing
Yeah.
multiverse. Like
Which
getting
I
notes.
hated.
It's bad. But like, this is what I'm talking about. If you're right with the Aubrey Plaza of it all.
Yep.
Aubrey Plaza would have done that and it would have come off like a very funny bit.
Yep.
Can you name like, because there's a way to flip that where it's like, can you name the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies? And you could be like, oh, I'm sorry, are you name 3 albumsing me?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, my favorite Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man, here he is.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and he's back. Spider-Man and fuck you for asking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that wasn't this.
Nope.
She has done some very, very strange stuff.
Yeah. And all of them are weird and mean.
Yeah. The best, this one goes on for a very long time, so we're probably not going to show this full clip, but this was some poor interviewer, I think from the BBC or something, who after the trailer came out, now there's the line,
Yeah.
he was researching spiders in the Amazon with my mom right before she died. Line's not in the movie.
No.
That line is not in the movie.
No.
It probably was at some point.
Yeah. Maybe it was removed after the trailer. dropped.
Maybe that line was there until the day before.
Yeah,
Like no
who
one
knows?
knows. But this is the most awkward shit
Yeah.
I've ever seen somebody put somebody else through.
Yeah.
There
This
was
is-
a line
I
from
felt
the
so
trailer
bad
that
for this
went sort
interviewer.
of viral. Do you remember that?
What was
They're
it?
just like, hey,
It
I was
the
told to
line that
ask. I was
says
told to
he was
ask
in the
about
Amazon
this.
with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died. Do you remember that going viral? at
Why
all?
did that go viral?
I think it went viral because out of context, people were just like, "What does this mean?" Did you catch that at all?
No. Somebody brought this up, and I have no idea what it's about.
There were lots of memes because I think people were like, "What is?" Just out of the context
I have no
of it,
idea.
it
I
was
haven't
just
heard
a
about
very
it at all.
But isn't any sentence out of context out of context?
Like,
Yeah.
it went viral.
Very true.
Clearly,
What a
people think so,
silly-
girl.
Get absolutely wrecked.
Here's my thing.
She knew.
She knew.
She- what?
knew.
You didn't
She
get a-
dropped her agent over it.
Yeah, you didn't get a call the next day when it started going viral.
Yeah.
Nobody happened to mention to you
Yeah.
about what was going on the internet
Yeah.
with your terrible movie trailer that you fired your team over.
Here's the thing. She knew the movie was going to be bad, okay? You have 2 choices from there. You can sink with the fucking ship or you can be in on the joke. And she refused. Everybody gave her the opportunity to be in on the joke. Everybody kept lobbing the softballs and being like, hey, do you want to be in on the joke instead of being the joke? She couldn't take herself unseriously for 2 seconds to have a good time. She absolutely refused. She said, none of you should be able to have a good time with this. I
Yeah.
want to ruin everyone's fun with it because I don't like being made fun of. And guess what? You were going to get made
Yeah.
fun of either way.
The movie
And
can
I'm
be-
sorry you were going to get made fun of. I'm sorry your movie's bad. But like, if you know the movie's bad and you know that you do because you dropped your agent over it,
Yeah. She's
then like,
fine with the-
girl, lean in.
She's fine with the movie being the joke
Yeah.
as long as she's not the joke. And that's one of the layers of this thing that's going
She's
on
fine
too.
with the cinematic universe being the joke, but she won't make jokes about the movie either. The
Well,
problem is she doesn't make jokes. She's
No,
not funny.
So the thing is, she wants to come off like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be pretty bad. It's not my fault. It's
I'm
pretty
too good
bad.
for this.
She did this. This is the same thing she did
Yeah.
with 50 Shades.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying we've seen this from her before where
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, I think this is dumb and beneath me.
Yeah.
And I knew it was dumb and beneath me the whole time.
Yeah.
As long as you don't think I'm the reason, I can just act like, oh, I don't know about anything that's going on. Oh, the internet was saying things about the dumb movie. oh, I don't know anything about the dumb movie.
Stop acting too good for the movie you did.
You're
it's such
in the
rich kid
movie.
behavior. Thank you, Alonzo. This is why I refuse to defend her, is because it's such Nepo baby behavior.
It's
if she wasn't a
total-
Nepo baby, I'd be in such a different position, but I'm like, absolutely not. I have no sympathy for this, like, absolutely mean Nepo baby.
Dude, like there was a clip that isn't in this thread.
Yeah.
Where she was on Seth Meyers, and Seth Meyers was like, "Hey, do I have to know about Spider-Man
Yeah.
to see this movie? Do I have to have seen the?" She's like, "No, you don't have to know anything about Spider-Man. You don't have to know anything about anything to see this movie."
And like, that's
Like-
almost funny.
It's almost funny.
It's almost funny. It
But-
keeps being almost funny.
And here's the
But if it was like, it'd be funny if it wasn't mean spirited.
The other
You know?
thing is, if the movie hadn't flopped and it
Yeah.
wasn't a big corporate soulless Sony movie,
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, if she was doing this,
Yeah.
I was talking with some friends about this last night,
Yeah.
and it's like, if she was doing this on any movie with any worth or value, or
Yeah.
like had a can you name who directed Madam Web? No one can. No one knows who's his name's at the end.
Sure.
You can IMDb him, but nobody knows. This person retreated like the fucking Kool-Aid man.
It was the same person who did Morbius, wasn't it?
I don't know. It's the
I think
same
so.
writers.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same director,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but because nobody knows, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because people clocked in
Yeah.
and they made the movie and they clocked out.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't that kind of movie, this would be extremely, extremely bad.
Yeah.
Like if she was throwing some director under the bus that really cared about this movie, and I do feel like she is throwing the younger cast, I think, was still very excited about this and was
Yeah.
hoping to salvage it.
Yes.
Sydney Sweeney in every interview, and maybe Sydney Sweeney is just
Yeah.
media trained like we're talking about.
Right.
But Sydney Sweeney really
Tries.
made it seem like she was excited about
Yeah.
being Julia Cornwall. She
Yeah.
wanted to be Spider-Woman. She had like suggestions on the set for things that
Yeah.
Spider-Woman would do.
She wasn't good in the movie, but
No, she wasn't good in the film. She might listen, for everything you're hearing about Dakota Johnson being the worst part of the film. I hate saying this. Sydney Sweeney
Not
does
worse
not,
than- not
does
worse
not
than
do
Dakota
well in this film.
Johnson.
I think Sydney Sweeney was given less opportunity
Yeah.
in the film. Like Dakota Johnson, we were talking about this
Yeah.
a little bit. Dakota Johnson, there are times when the movie's sense of humor aligns with
Yeah.
what an awkward and self-centered person I think
Yeah.
she is.
yeah, a broken clock is right twice a day kind of
it
thing.
just
Every once
sort
in a
of
while it
aligns.
hits it. Yeah.
And so she gets a couple goofs in this
Yeah.
movie where you're like, you nailed that one, Dakota Johnson. Sydney Sweeney gets no such opportunities.
No, none whatsoever.
Sydney Sweeney is literally sad male gaze schoolgirl in this
Yeah,
movie.
it's tough.
Everybody in this movie is dressed like 2003 except for Sydney Sweeney, who has to look like 70s librarian girl.
I could talk for hours about my opinions on the way that media portrays Sydney Sweeney, but that's not what the show is about
Yeah.
today. But I have a lot of opinions about the like absolutely horrifying and like unbreakable, no matter what she is in,
Yeah.
way that people show Sydney Sweeney.
They figured out a way to upskirt Sydney Sweeney in this
Yeah.
movie, and they figured out a way to get Sydney Sweeney soaking wet in this movie.
They refuse to let her do anything that doesn't come across as the intro of a bad porno.
Yeah, she was playing the nerdy girl.
Yeah.
And they were just like, and then nerdy girl does something strangely sexual. And you're just like, why?
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 For what?
Why?
For what? She's
There's
a
a
teenager.
literal reverse Spider-Man killing people.
She's a teenager.
She's playing somebody who's not. All of these girls in this movie specifically say,
Yeah.
I'm not 18.
Yeah.
They have all of the
Yeah.
have all of the women say that in this movie.
Yes.
It's fucking weird, this movie.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
It's fucking weird. I don't know whether they took more opportunity for weird male gaze like sexy baby fetish or to insert strange Sony products into this film.
Yeah.
What do you think they did more off the top of your head?
I'd say they're pretty tied.
They're pretty tied.
I'd say they're pretty
but
tied.
are they tied with Pepsi products?
I would say Pepsi products probably comes in just below the extreme sexualization of teenagers and the integration of Sony products.
It's fucking wild. This movie is
Yeah.
a ride. This movie's a ride, y'all.
Yeah. It is shocking that this
See-
was directed by a woman.
C. Dandino in the live studio audience says, I hate that she keeps being in these overly sexualized roles because she can actually act when people let her act.
Yeah. She's
done good stuff in smaller films. But when she's in bigger films, they're like, what if you sexy?
Yeah.
What if you sexy for us?
Yeah.
For money?
Yeah. Look, again, you put her in a rom-com that's based on a Shakespeare play, and still in all of the promotions, she's in a fucking bikini. So, like, I don't know, man. It feels like maybe this is like a absolutely concerted effort of a bunch of shitty male producers all being like, we can get Sydney Sweeney to do this. We can use Sydney Sweeney's body.
Yeah.
Horrifying. Absolutely hate it. Fuck everybody for that.
Yeah. But I think the three actors that
Movie
play
coming out where she plays a nun.
Yeah. I think the three actors that were playing the Spider team really wanted this to be a thing. And
They did.
And did a lot with really bad material.
And they come across so sweet in the interviews. Like their friendship, all the interviews with them are fantastic. They seem like very sweet girls that genuinely became friends. I think that Isabella Merced was the best actor in the movie.
Oh, she played Anya, right?
Yeah.
She didn't
get a lot to do, but I think she was the best actor in the movie by far.
She had. You want to talk about people,
And
who
that
had
does
some,
include Adam Scott.
You want to talk about people who had some bad lines and made them work to the best of their ability just through sheer charm.
Yeah.
Isabella Merced did.
Yeah.
It. She did it. Okay, we have differing opinions on Adam Scott in this film. But
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I did like Adam Scott a lot in the
I think
he
he was weak as hell. I think he was absolute milquetoast.
I mean, he was playing a guy who was kind of milquetoast.
Okay, well, be a good actor about it. Make it not milquetoast. I don't know
thought
what to tell
he-
you, Adam
I
Scott.
thought he was.
I thought it was boring.
I thought he was as good as could be.
I
With
thought
that
he
material.
showed up and he was like, oh, I've discovered this is a bad movie. I do not care about this, and I am going to read these a minute before we tape.
Oh, I
Every
didn't get
word
that at
sounded like
all.
he was reading it for the first time,
I
and he
did
didn't
not-
give a shit.
I did not get
Yep.
that at all. But I mean, listen, I'm not going to say that anybody's opinion about Madam Web is wrong.
Yeah.
Because Madam Web is such a it is a tangled web.
Yeah.
It's a tangled web of confusion because
Yeah.
I don't know where anybody was coming from
Yeah.
or what anybody wanted out of that movie. So it's impossible to say.
Everyone I hear talking about him being good are picking out the one white dude in the movie as like, well, he did good, right? And I'm like, no, everyone was bad in it. And he's not a special white boy that showed up and carried anything.
Oh,
I'm only hearing men saying that they liked Adam Scott in it so far.
I would not say that he carried anything. The movie did not get carried.
I think that people see Adam Scott and they like Adam Scott, so they just assume he's good, and I don't think he was good in it. I think that there is a bias towards Adam Scott that's a few layers deep of we like Adam Scott, we love him in this thing, right? Like we love Parks and Rec, so we love Adam Scott.
Yeah.
And then also he's the like white guy in the middle who didn't have to get into any of the silly shit, so he gets a pass. Nope. Read your lines more than a day before you film.
I don't know. I thought he was decent. I thought he was good. But listen, to be a good part of this film doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to be the best to take the best bite out of a rotten apple.
Yeah.
Doesn't really mean much. And I don't think he was best. I don't know if anybody was best. If you had to say who was, I mean, you're right. Anya sold a lot of her stuff.
Isabella Merced.
Other than that,
She's the only one who had any grounding in her character.
yeah.
And she's the only one who, not one of her lines makes you go like, oh.
And she had some lines that could have made you go, oh.
Yeah, she was having to play the math kid that like math was irrelevant to this. And none of the problems were her delivery. The lines were poorly
Yeah.
written. Don't get me wrong. She's not a
Yeah.
well-written character. But like having to randomly bring up math at times that it didn't make any sense to be talking about math right now. The fact that she was able to ground that to the best of her ability.
There's a bit in the beginning where you are meeting all three of the Spider team.
Yeah.
And they are given one line each
Yeah.
to characterize them. And like Anya's is literally, well, if I was to turn what just happened to us into a math equation.
Yeah.
And then Julia, who's Sydney Sweeney, was like, I'm broken and alone and pouty. And then poor Maddie's line was just like, and I'm here too.
Give me my skateboard.
Give me my skateboard. I'm a punk kid.
So weird.
It was so weird.
Katexia in the live studio audience said, shout out to Beyonce somehow being in it. I love that Beyonce's in this movie. I love that Britney Spears is in this.
Oh my God. If Sony was just like, hey, first of all, hi, Gabby. Second of all, if Sony had anything going on in 2003 or around 2003, it was in this movie.
100%.
There is a reference to somebody going home to watch American Idol.
Yeah,
There is a reference.
I just want to go home and watch Idol. I was like, are they talking about American Idol?
Yeah, it's like, I'm going home to watch Idol.
Was that a Sony production?
Yeah, it was Sony and Fox.
Because I was like, it's a Fox show. Yeah.
Sony doesn't have a network. So it was a Sony production for a Fox network. So the number of times that people basically looked into the camera and went, because it's 2003.
Yeah.
Like there was
approximately.
there was a PSP in the movie.
Yeah.
Everybody was using Sony Ericsson phones.
Yeah.
I saw more Vio laptops than I ever saw in the
In
early
2003.
2000s. Yeah, like
Yeah.
wow.
This one's a mild spoiler for it. Again, we're going to do a full spoiler review of this on the Patreon, so we're trying to not get into too many of the details here. But they do play Toxic by Britney Spears, which did not come out until 2004.
They did get that a little wrong. They did get some things a little wrong, surprisingly, in the Madame Web.
Shocking that anything was wrong in Madame Web.
Shocking in the Madame Web.
Yeah.
Listen, there are some solid actors in this movie. The gentleman who plays Ezekiel Sims, the bad guy.
Yeah.
Was in a movie, was in Prophet.
Yeah.
He was very good. He's a good actor. This guy is making choices. He's doing something that I call please rein me in. I'm daring you to rein me in.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of actors.
My favorite Lady Gaga song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, there was an ad, that song was in the movie.
Yeah.
Was that a Sony song?
I don't know.
He was doing a thing that like Jesse Eisenberg did in the Superman movies.
Yeah.
That Eddie Redmayne did in Jupiter Ascending, which is like, if the director isn't going to tell me what to do, I'm going to perform so hard that no one will be able to stop me from performing. Like, Ezekiel Sims in this film, number one, 90% ADR. The villain is 90%
Almost
ADR.
100%.
Like,
I would say it's more than 90.
he is always sitting in shadow.
Yeah.
His back is to people. He's just off camera talking. Something about his plot and his dialogue and what his whole thing, they just couldn't figure out. And there are scenes, and I wish, I never thought I would say this in my life.
Yeah.
But poor Zosha Mamet.
Yeah.
Poor Nepo baby Zosha Mamet.
Yeah.
Who is the only person really that has scenes against him all movie.
And she's just sitting in the chair being like, sure thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you're saying.
She's Ezekiel's guy in the chair.
Yeah.
And she has to do these reactions to lines that don't exist.
Yeah.
And so she's like raising eyebrows and getting a little quirky. and it's like, she's responding to these lines in ways that he is not saying them because he isn't.
Now,
no one's saying anything.
I want to block us from a spoiler really quick because I do not want to talk about his motivation.
No, I'm not going to.
I don't want to talk. I'm just putting it out there
No.
because being shocked by that when seeing the movie was very, very shocking for me. And I really want you all to be as stunned and confused as I was.
It's buck wild.
Yeah.
What I will say is that Ezekiel Sims gets the most choreographed action movie camera work, but he's never in action scenes.
No.
Ezekiel Sims will be sitting around in his apartment and the director will be like, and then we have to spin the camera.
Yeah.
And then it's got to flip around and he's got to flip over 18 things in his apartment to deliver a line to somebody. He is like sitting in chairs wrong and he's got 18 beverages.
Right.
Ezekiel Sims is
serving bisexual stereotypes.
He's the bi-stereotype icon of this film.
Now, here's my thing. I have such a hard time judging his acting because of a few things. One,
his accent?
No. He is doing a vague accent, and we want to be clear, this is not the actor's accent.
No. He's doing a voice.
He's doing a voice.
He's doing.
So I just want to be clear: we would never make fun of a real human being's accent.
It's not a. It's not an
He's
accent.
putting on a vague, unplaceable accent.
It's not. It's not. It's because it's not a place. He's doing villain accent.
He is.
He's decided the villain has a voice.
Yeah.
And that voice.
Yeah.
Is fucking wild. I am the villain of this film, and I am doing something the likes of which you have not heard since Benedict Cumberbatch in the first Doctor Strange. My voice is simply a thing.
I love it. I love it.
He's just daring somebody to run in and go,
Stop.
I'm going to give you direction because this is not going well.
But here's the thing. Maybe there was no director when he was doing the entire fucking movie in the booth.
He was doing the whole thing.
None of that movie was done on set for him.
No.
I mean, he did something, and then he redid the whole thing in the booth. So my question is, I wonder what the original take was. I'd give anything, okay? I would give anything to hear what the original take was, because what the fuck was that? Now, I did a movie when I was like 13 years old,
Humble
right?
brag.
And one of the guys in the movie was so bad, they dubbed his entire character. Okay, it's a terrible indie movie that I did. But I remember all of us on set being like, whew, okay, mind you, I'm 13 years old. I'm a child on set being like, oh, that's rough, buddy. Okay, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be difficult.
Yeah.
And you watch the director give up on them, right? I watched the director on set be like, I'm not telling a fucking thing to this guy. We're gonna edit him out as much as possible. Yeah. We're gonna dub the entire thing.
The best thing
he clearly
we can
got
do
the role from a friend.
Is get through it.
Exactly. And like to all of us was like, don't worry about him. Just do your thing, okay? Like you just keep going. And I want to know what happened, because it's like, it can't be that like, oh, we lost his audio.
No.
All of it for the whole movie? No.
because it was shot in ways, and that's the thing that's wild.
Is it a delivery change? Is it a plot change? Is it both? Probably both, right?
It was shot in ways that told me that he had that they handed him dialogue, and they were probably handing him new lines every day to the point where he checked out. And not only did he check out, but they were literally, I'm telling you,
so when you
watch this movie, he never delivers his lines in a way where you can see his face.
Yeah.
He is in places where he can't be in shadow or his back can't be to you. He's either in the suit, or he literally does this with his arm at one point. He Dracula's his arm. They do shit where they make sure that you just can't see him because they're like, that line's gonna change. I think this guy, from everything that I've seen, it is like a Sydney Sweeney situation with him where it's like, I've seen him in things. I know he does well.
Yeah.
This guy is good. They are giving him less than nothing because he didn't even have lines. I think they were literally like, here's a paragraph, but don't worry, it's going to change. And so he was like, what do you mean, don't worry, it's going to change? So what do I do?
But then why was his ADR so bad?
So there are
now
two
explain
things.
that.
So
now explain why the delivery on the ADR was, you know what? If we were to pick a worst in the movie, I think it's him.
Oh yeah. But here's what I'll say about this film. Nobody comes off poorly in this film. Nobody is going to walk away from this movie and people are going to be like,
You're a bad actor now.
That person tanked the movie, or this was bad. No.
You can't single anybody out.
No, this is not anybody's fault.
Right.
This is a Sony Pictures movie that was made by committee.
Yeah.
There were 18 producers standing in the room, disagreeing with each other, rewriting everything in the moment. The dudes who wrote this movie, who wrote Morbius and wrote this, there are writers like this all throughout Hollywood. These are writers who they clock in, they write a movie, they get an outline from the producer.
Yeah.
They go, this is shit. I'll make it work the best I can. They clock out, they go home.
No second draft.
No second draft. We don't have time.
No second drafts, Madam Web.
We have to release a Spider-Man movie every 5 years and 9 months, or the boy goes back to Marvel.
So no time for second drafts. Make a movie.
Right. We have nothing else on the slate this year. Do a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, but don't say Spider-Man.
Right. Craven?
I think, with the ADR, there are two things that are going on. It was very clear that by the end of this production, they were doing so much ADR right up until the last moment that they weren't taking the time to engineer the ADR to match the on-set audio.
No.
Some of it does, and you can tell where some of the audio was recorded early.
And they didn't mix it.
And then you can tell where some of the audio was recorded down to the wire.
Yeah.
Where they just were like, get it in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it doesn't sound like he's in the, get it in the movie.
Here, hold on. This is what it sounds like. Hold on. Alex, give me your mic.
All right, here we go.
Okay. No. Hold on.
On to my single, please.
Responsibility that will eventually be here as well. And I have to get these girls that are going to hurt me, I believe, with spiders. My spiders, I love spiders. I'll kill for spiders. Listen, you look up every camera, zoom enhance. And then, yes. And I also believe that it is okay for me to kill little girls. And that's okay.
Say something about powers.
Because of powers.
Madam Web and the villain have one scene together in this film. They have one scene together in this film, and it's
so funny. It's so funny.
It's cut like a Tool music video from the early 2000s. It's cut like a dream sequence in a music video in a horror film. The two of them do not face each other. They do not look at each other.
Yeah.
They do not acknowledge each other's existence.
No.
Half the time they aren't moving their mouths.
Yeah.
The camera is just strobing into so many places.
It's incredible.
Because they had nothing to say.
I think it was my favorite scene.
It was an amazing scene. I was just like, this is the main confrontation of the film. And these two people aren't in the same place.
Right. All right. Save something for the Patreon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I got a lot for the Patreon.
We're going to go basically beat by beat on the Patreon.
Yeah.
So you'll see that over there. But let's see what other people are saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go through a little bit. Let's take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Okay. So currently on the tomato meter, it has 13%.
Is that, do we got audience or critic? What are we looking
So
at?
that's on the tomato meter is critic.
Okay. And so
audience
score.
55%. That's a huge gap because people are going and reviewing it to be like, I had so much fun with this horrible movie.
Yeah, I think that's where probably most of the good's coming from. Although, you never know.
Yeah.
There might be people who are just. I think there are enough actors in this movie who have stans. I think right now Sydney Sweeney has such
Sweeney
stands
does.
where it's like Sydney's amazing, Sydney's perfect. Love this movie, love anything she's in.
Yeah.
But
let's read.
Yeah, let's
see what they're saying about it. So we have first up, I almost admire the sheer lack of effort on display in the acting, storytelling, and set pieces. To say that Johnson in particular phoned in this performance would be an insult to Alexander Graham Bell. We have
that David Sims, of course, one of our favorites, one of the two friends from Blank Check. I can't wait for the Blank Check episode about Madam Web.
The fact that the writers of Sony's 2022 flop Morbius had a hand in this storyline didn't augur well. And it's turned out the film plays like another desperate attempt to keep the franchise flag flying. Okay. Well, on to the next Sony project. August heavily delayed Aaron Taylor Johnson's vehicle Kraven the Hunter. Let's see if that one can make a lick of sense.
Woo!
Somebody really just said, on to the next one. How about here? It gives me no pleasure to report this because we could use some fresh and original superhero adaptations on the big screen these days. But Dakota Johnson starring Madam Web is one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen. Hear me out. The worst. I had fun, but objectively the worst. I can't name something that's worse.
I think
it's worse than Morbius.
Man,
It's more fun than Morbius.
I was going back and forth on that. I think I don't know. Morbius is not more coherent. That's the thing. It's not better made.
Yeah.
It really comes down to which one you think is more goofy fun than the other. That's the only thing.
I think it is a worse script. I think it's a worse script. I think it is worse dialogue than Morbius.
Morbius that does 3 flashbacks to a flash forward to a flash sideways within the first 10 minutes?
I think so. And I know
Although
that's
Madam
hard.
Web kind of does that too.
I know. They reuse things
Dude,
over and over again. We're not gonna.
No, we're not
We
going to
don't
do
have
that.
to.
But listen, there's some parts of Madam Web where I'm like, oh, did we need to get this up to like 97 minutes?
100%. I do think that Madam Web is the worst script, but it is. I would never watch Morbius again. I will watch Madam Web again.
Yeah.
So it's like depending on what you gauge it by, it's a more fun movie because it's worse.
That's fair.
Morbius sits in that where I'm like, it's not that fun bad for me. It's kind of just bad. Like I don't enjoy watching Morbius at all.
Morbius is more like Mystery Science Theater riff tracks bad, where like you need somebody talking during it.
Yeah.
Whereas Madam Web is bad in a way that you could watch alone and it's funny.
One of my favorites, I saw this come up on TikTok. I think it was just a Letterboxd review initially, was Madam Web sounds like it was recorded on a Zoom delay. And I think that is honestly the most accurate description I've seen of it, because all of the lines, because I really do think they just didn't have the actors in the same room for a lot of things, are so awkwardly paced. The scenes are so incredibly long. There were multiple times where I had to lean over to the person next to me and go, holy shit, it's still going. Because the scenes themselves were so long. Like, cut away, move on.
Some
just
of these
sitting,
shots.
Just sitting.
Yeah, some of these shots really do feel like, hey, somebody can just say that the meeting's over.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna hang up.
Yeah.
Meeting's over.
Yeah, everybody.
This is all we're gonna get out of this week.
That's it. We're done.
No new business.
No new business. Everyone, please just let it go. It's okay. We can just let it go.
Morbius and Madam Web are good films.
Damn, I had some more in here. This was a collection of Letterboxd reviews, and it got taken down.
Really?
Yeah. So
Why? Does it say why?
it says, well, this is from Posters with Letterboxd Reviews, and this was actually, they had it connected to a compilation of lines. So they put footage from the movie in it interspliced with Letterboxd reviews, and unfortunately
so
it's been
Sony
taken
took it down?
Sony has taken it down. It says it was reported by a copyright
Boo,
owner.
Sony.
Yeah.
Boo.
Here's
Fucking
one.
weaponized DMCA is my least favorite shit.
This is from Cinema Joe on TikTok, said, Madam Web feels like it was made by aliens from another planet, mostly because it doesn't seem like a human could watch this slop and agree to release it for public consumption. A sponsored by Pepsi script, written with a crayon, where every line is either ADR or expository babble.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And it can't even be buried by the script under action and style, because there is none. Lifeless, nonsensical, awkward, but the most I've laughed during a movie in a long time, so it has that going for it. Scientists, not in the Amazon, will study this movie for years, but I doubt that Sony will learn a lesson from it.
Oh. No, they won't.
No.
No. They're gonna keep churning these things out.
Yeah.
There is a thing going on here that I was speaking with friend of the show, Hector Navarro, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he of course saw it opening night
Of course.
for Heroes Reforged. And he was like, I don't know why they don't fire the creative teams that keep making these Sony Spider-Man universe movies.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure it out. And we know that there's this deal between Sony and Marvel. We know that they have to make one of these every 5 years and 9 months. They have to.
Yes.
I'm wondering if these producers, because one of them is Avi Arad.
Yeah.
Avi Arad was the head of Marvel for a while and then became the guy that did Marvel media deals. He's the guy that made sure that the animated series happened in the 90s. He's the guy that made the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies happen.
Yeah.
He's also the guy that made like the Daredevil movie happen. You know? But Avi Arad is...
I don't see Avi Arad under producers for this.
It's his production company.
Got
so
it.
you'll see him on everything. He's one of like the top executives. He is the guy that brought Marvel to the movies.
Okay.
And he's involved with all of these movies. But he's clearly making these movies bad. They all have the Avi Arad like cinematic style to them. They all have the same choices made. And I think they can't get rid of him. I think he was part of the perpetual
You can't
Spider-Man
get rid
deal.
of me.
I genuinely think when Sony and Marvel signed the deal, it was Sony Pictures, Marvel, and Avi Arad's production company.
Interesting.
And I think that if they change that,
Yeah.
if they get rid of these producers, they lose Spider-Man.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Neef in the live studio audience, I think, has an excellent take on this, which is it's because they don't exist to make money, they're squatting. I think describing it
that's the thing.
as squatting is so correct.
So that's part 2 of this, right? So you've
Yeah.
got this guy who was Marvel and tried to make Marvel into what it
Yeah.
was, couldn't do it.
Now they're just squatting.
Kevin Feige did it.
Yeah.
And Kevin Feige was underneath Avi Arad on a lot of these movies. Now you've got this thing where they can't do anything with Spider-Man directly. They could. They're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
They could do as much as they want with Spider-Man, right? But they're being very careful
Mm-hmm.
because Marvel does Spider-Man good.
Yeah.
They do good Spider-Man. And all of the characters that you want to see Spider-Man play in the sandbox with are owned by Marvel Studios.
Right.
So Sony is afraid to make Spider-Man decisions that will screw up Marvel's decisions.
Yeah.
Because then Marvel won't do these co-productions with them.
Right. Which makes them a shit ton of money and
Right.
keeps their franchise relevant.
Marvel can't stop Sony from making these movies
Yeah.
legally. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
So the best they can do is keep their mouths shut about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when like a new Sony Spider-Man movie comes out,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the Marvel socials, they'll do like one obligatory post.
Right.
The Marvel Instagram will be like, Madam Web's out today, everybody. Get your Pepsi and get to the theater. And that's all you'll hear.
Right.
And they're locked in this fucking stalemate.
Yeah.
It's never gonna end.
Right.
It's never going to end because Sony Pictures is like the one studio that I think would not sell out to Disney because Sony uses their studio the same way they use their record label, the same way they use their TV stuff to sell Sony equipment,
Yeah.
to sell Sony products. It's too valuable to them in that way. Sony can put out movie after movie that fails
Yeah.
because it's just a commercial for shooting your movie on Sony cameras
Yeah.
and going to a Sony theater with Sony projection. So they're never going to sell to Marvel.
No.
There's no amount of money that Marvel could give Sony to give up Spider-Man because Sony can just sit back and collect Spider-Man money from Marvel.
As long as they keep holding on to that license.
We're all trapped here. We're all trapped in Madam's web. Her web connects us all and we hate it.
Oh, we hate it, but we love it.
But oh god.
Oh, but we love it.
I can't wait for Craven. I
Yeah?
can't wait for all of these Sony Spider cinematic Spider peoples
Yeah.
to get together. Like, they just want to do their Avengers.
Yeah.
They want Venom and Dr. Michael Morbius.
Yeah.
And the Madame Web.
Do you think we see the Spider-Girls in another movie?
No. I think they're done. I think, and that's what's fucked.
And
is-
again, I'm not going to tell them anything about the Spider-Girls in this movie.
That's what's fucked is because Aranya is a great character in the comics. Anya Corazon is a great character in the comics. Julia Cornwall was always a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
And Maddie Bryce is one of the best new characters in the Spider-Man canon.
Yeah.
But I think after this movie, we don't see any more of them. Because it flopped.
Oh, because here's the thing. There are movies that are so bad that they perform well. They send Sony the wrong idea, right? Okay? This is not one of them. So specifically, actually, they set a record low for the Sony movies at the box office. Record low for the Sony Spider-Man movies at the box office.
Well, because Venom made a good amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, Venom did pretty well.
Yeah.
Morbius did not do well, but
No.
it didn't do
Morbius was the previous record.
Right.
So
Morbius lost a lot of money.
Morbius, in its 3-day debut, did $39 million.
Congratulations to Morbius.
Madam Web,
Yeah.
in its 3-day opening weekend, did $25 million.
This is a $150 million movie.
So it grossed $17.6 million in the U.S. during its opening weekend.
Oh,
sorry.
17
It was actually 17 in the 3.
17
The 25
domestic?
is 6. It was actually the 25 was a 6-day period. So if
No.
we were actually to directly compare it to Morbius's 3-day, 39 million in 3-day for Morbius, 17.6 for Madam Web.
17?
17.
17 is like an indie art house film that's going straight to VOD that
Yeah.
they release for
Yeah.
one weekend for awards season so they can
Yeah.
be eligible for awards. 17 million is like is like a low budget rom-com in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That opens against a big summer movie.
Yeah.
That's not a $150 million movie.
And there was nothing else this week.
No.
So it was not in competition with anything. The thing it is behind, that's second at the box office this week. The only thing it is behind is the Bob Marley One Love biopic. So it had absolutely no competition, and it still only did $17 million.
Listen, we all love Bob Marley, but that's not a big movie that had a lot of marketing or money behind it. Was it a limited release, the Bob Marley?
No.
Okay, it was wide release.
Yeah, I went on Friday to the
Okay.
AMC, and the main theater was the Bob Marley movie. On Friday.
Friday
I saw
night.
it on Friday. Absolutely.
Wait,
wild.
so are you telling me our date night movies for the year 2024 were the Bob Marley biopic, the Valentine's Day date night movies,
Yes.
Bob Marley One Love,
Yeah.
or Madam Web?
What a time.
Whew.
So another fun little record
Darius
for
Shaft
it.
in the live studio audience is like, literally the advertising was come see the Bob Marley biopic. It's not Madam Web.
God, that's so funny. So another fun little record for Madam Web is that it became the first Marvel-based movie since Fox's Fantastic Four reboot to not open at number 1.
Fan Four Stick?
Yeah, since Fan Four Stick to not open at number 1.
But here's what we can say about this movie, just like we could say about Fan Four Stick. Everybody walks away fine.
Well, here's the thing.
Except the director of Fan Four Stick, the guy who did Chronicle,
But
didn't get to do anything.
Even Fan Four Stick did 26 million.
No!
Fan Four Stick did better box office in its opening 3 days.
And that was like in 2015.
And that was 2015. I don't believe that's accounted for inflation.
Fan Four Stick? Wow.
Look, it's so funny. God, it's so funny.
There is a thing going on in all industries right now.
Yeah.
And this is actually a great segue, unfortunately, away from Madam Web, but to other things that we have to talk
We're
about.
talking about other things. We don't have to talk about other things.
You
It's
wanna
the end
talk
of the
about-
show.
Oh, you're right. It's already 10:15. Never
We don't
mind.
have to talk about any other news today.
Great. Then
Here's
I'm
what
not
we
going
can
to.
do.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
There is a problem in all industries right now. And
Yeah.
the thing that I was going to bring up is I was going to bring up Larian at DICE, where Larian
Sure.
basically said they got up and they won for Baldur's Gate, and they
Yeah.
said, hey, fuck all this shit that's going on with shareholders, with movies, with creative by committee,
Yeah.
with the idea that things have to be bigger and bigger and line have to go up,
Yeah.
because it's going to ruin everything. We've talked about this before. Steven Spielberg said it 15 years ago. He was
Yeah.
like, Hollywood is going to get too top heavy. It's already happening.
Yep.
There is no way to continue along this path.
We're seeing it with games. We're seeing it with movies. We're seeing it with television.
We're seeing it with music. We're seeing it with album releases.
Yeah.
There is no way to continue to make line go up.
Yeah.
You only get increasing and increasing costs under tighter and tighter timelines
Yeah.
that make worse and worse art for everyone.
There is no such thing as exponential growth, and the area that we choose to apply it to, being art, is the most unhinged thing of late stage capitalism that exists in our industry.
Yeah. The idea of exponential growth comes from literally a mid 20th century post wartime
Yeah.
idea of what a new economy should be.
Right.
Where it's like, no, there is room for exponential growth. We literally just spent all of our money and
Yeah.
time and human lives
Yeah.
on a war. Of course there's exponential growth, but that's only temporary.
Right. Hey, let's be honest here. It's Reagan's fault.
Hey, fuck Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is the reason we have Madam Web.
Ronald Reagan is the reason we have Madam Web, because you know what? After the war, Ronald Reagan said, you know what we could do? You know what would be a good idea? Supply side economics.
That's
now,
right.
this is before the actual integration of full Reaganomics and trickle down theory. This is supply side economics, which is if we make it the people will come. First, we create supply,
Right.
and the demand will increase to meet it. And I feel like everything that we're seeing that's a problem is based on that theory of if we keep making the budgets bigger, they will make more money.
Which is
Supply
wh-
side economics has been disproven before it was even implemented.
It was
and we're
disproven-
still doing it.
It was disproven by me running a lemonade stand as a kid. It doesn't matter how many cups of lemonade I pour.
It doesn't matter.
I could pour 80 cups of lemonade.
And it doesn't mean you're going to sell 80 cups of lemonade if you aren't in a place where 80 people need lemonade.
Nobody wants 150 million cups of Madam Web.
Correct.
And you have to sell 150 million cups of Madam
So-
Web to break even.
Exactly. And this is your reminder that everything is Ronald Reagan's fault.
Man, fuck Ronald Reagan for creating the Sony Spider-Man universe.
That's all the show for today. We're going to go and we're going to thank everybody and we're going to do all of the things. But this is your reminder that if you're not done listening to us talk about Madam Web because we haven't gotten into the details of the movie yet, go over to the Patreon after this, patreon.com/Pixel Circus. It'll be pre-recorded, so it'll probably be up like, I don't know, an hour or so after
Yeah.
the show.
We cannot go as long as we did for Justice League.
We can't. But we'll see. We'll see over there. We're going to do a full in-depth review over there. It's $5 a month. You can even get yourself a free trial if you just want to check this one out and see if you dig our extra content. We're going to go through and we're going to thank everyone that supported us here on Twitch. But before we do that, Anthony, where else can people find you?
You can find me in Peru trying to find out the mystery of my powers.
Being the only person, one of two people in Peru.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Peru trying to figure out the secret of my powers and the universe, but also everywhere online at a Carboni.
Yeah.
And there's a new episode of We Have Concerns up today. Go listen to that. That's my science comedy podcast with Jeff Kanata. It's at wehaveconcerns.com. Sage, what tangled webs are you weaving?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Not Sage. I am not going to Peru, and I don't think Madam Web did either.
Oh no!
How about you, Alex?
You can find me on Twitter at Alder_Mancy. And I also did a little interview on Critical Misses this past weekend, and you can go find that on their YouTube.